What's going on, everyone? This is Jim from JCRC. Sorry for the delay, guys and gals. I got a little preoccupied with work, so things got put on hold. Nevertheless, today is Sunday, October 1st, around 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and I am about to get started on the WLtoys Amphibious project upgrade, I guess. A lot of stuff to go into this truck today, so I guess we'll get started. Last video you knew that I had purchased some metal transmission gears for it, along with a shift fork and some drive shaft couplers, and that Traxxas Valinian 3500 kV brushless motor. So I guess we'll just get right down to the nitty gritty and start tearing this baby apart. Beauty. A lot of stuff to remove on this guy, so I'm going to have to pull all the foam off the bottom of it in order to get access to the screws. So I guess we'll just get started with that. Yeah, I did punch holes in the bottom of this, which you're probably not going to be able to see, but I punched holes in the bottom of this for the main body screws. But since I need to access the transmission, I'm not too sure where the screws are hidden at under here, so that is why I need to remove all the foam off of the bottom of this, which is kind of a bummer. But if things go right on this build, then I probably won't need any of this foam on here at all. Maybe just that one thin sheet that I had on the bottom initially. So once again, I'll get to removing all this foam here, which is glued down, so that ought to be interesting. I guess first things first, off with the body. I already removed the 4 screws. We'll slip this little guy off and put it off to the side. See the little notch I put on the side? That is so the motor has some room to breathe. Which it doesn't matter, because like I said, all this stuff has to come off, and I'm not looking forward to ripping this stuff off. I can tell you that right now. A lot of zip ties holding things in place. Yeah. And there's really no easy way to go about this. I would like to be able to save as much as I can, though, so... Where do you start, eh? Where do you start on a project like this that has all this glue? Yeah, it looks like number one, my for sale sign is not going to survive this portion of the programming. Fragile. Very fragile, that for sale sign. One big portion. For sale. Maybe, if the price is right. Everything's for sale if the price is right. And that does it for the for sale sign. Where to start here? I probably don't need to mess with the back too much. So I kind of like to keep that intact for the most part. But I don't know. I might thin it down a little bit. It depends on my expectations for this truck and how I think it's going to do on the water to how I build it. Which may sound crazy, but that's just how I work. Yeah, this isn't going well. I think I'm going to have to introduce a knife into this progress here, or process. Zip ties, zip ties, zip ties. Zip ties and duct tape. That should be my motto. These zip ties were also glued in place. Yeah, I glued them in place right along here just to make sure that they didn't slide over that edge. Just keep peeling stuff apart here, piece by piece, I'd reckon. Now this guy is zip tied in as well, right down here I believe. And I must have one more on it back here somewhere. Yeah, I'm sorry you guys aren't getting the best view for this. But on a better note, there's not much of a view to be had on that. Hopefully I can retain my original layer of foam here. I'd hate to destroy that. I'm slowly working my way around to the front where I have more zip ties, of course. Like the Zip Tie King of Michigan here. Aha! Yeah, we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. Which one is which? I do not know. I might have just removed the wrong zip tie there. My guess is I'm probably gonna have to redo all this stuff anyways back here, so I should probably just take it off regardless. I might just leave this layer of foam on the front right here. It is 2 layers built up. I don't think it'll really affect anything too much. I know it'll still float like that. Decisions. going to peel it off. And I'm probably just going to cut this piece right along here because I really don't want to disturb that original fold, I don't think. This piece right up here, we'll just cut these zip ties off real fast. Maybe not real fast, but as fast as we can. Not so smooth, not so smooth. Yeah, I still have a zip tie hung up in the front, but I think we got the bulk of those, the bulk of them pulled out of there. This is probably going to have to be re-zip tied down again up here on these A-arms. But other than cutting this little piece across the front, I think we're pretty much good to go. Yeah, it's ugly but functional. Alright, moving on to the next step. Alright, so after taking a break for a second there, guys, I kind of peeled this back just a wee bit so I could see what the underside was looking like. I might be able to get away with just leaving this piece of foam on here. So I'm going to take off this upper portion of the chassis and see exactly what screws I need to pull out of here. And probably just poke holes right through the foam to get access to those. Because taking this thing off, well, I don't know. I could take it off, but then I'm going to have to go out and buy some zip ties because I do not have enough zip ties to replace this. Not too sure what to do here, guys. Not too sure what to do. I think I'm just going to try to leave it on. So, let me get this chassis removed real fast here, and we'll move on from there. And we are back. So in the meantime, I pulled out all the screws on the top, and I got to tell you, I've been using the original WLtoys screws the entire time with this top. So it's getting to the point where it's going to have to, I'm going to have to replace these screws here sooner or later. Like I said, every time I tear this thing apart, man, I think about replacing the screws because the Allen head just keeps jumping on all the screw holes. So it's getting close. I'm gonna have to replace those here pretty quick. All right, so we got the top and bottom screws out, and I need to pull out these two screws here on either side. This one here and this one here for the battery tray. I also need to pull the battery out of there, and yeah, then she'll be ready to be opened up. So 1 second for that, I guess. So I'm not making this a 20-minute video. I guess we can wrench and talk for a split second here. Wrenching. This one's jumping a little bit. Yeah, I pretty much do everything by hand too. I don't use a drill for much of anything unless I'm actually drilling, and that's pretty much the only thing I'll actually use a drill for. Speaking of which, I'm going to have to put my drill on the charger because one of these motor screws in here, the head is stripped out on it, so that's going to have to be drilled out, which isn't that big of a concern since it's the whole motor's coming out anyways. Kapow, just like that, she is undone. Slide our little 3-cell Gens Ace 2200 45C LiPo out of here, which is heavily plastic dipped, as you can see. Drop our foam down in the back here. Oh man, last 2 screws. I'm going to put you on pause for that one because one of these guys is going to take an Allen wrench, like an old standard Allen wrench. Alright, so mental note, these are still the 2 stock RC 4-wheel drive screws, or not RC 4-wheel drive, but WLtoys screws. I've been using them the entire time. I'm going to have to replace those with some RC 4-wheel drive screws when I put this guy back together, because they are getting pretty sketchy there. And that's not a spot that I necessarily want to drill out. Alright, we are opened up. I'm going to start pulling out some of this foam that's in the front of here. I'm going to try to put all the foam that goes in the front on the right hand side here over off to the right somewhere. Or actually I'm going to position it back here by my trail finder. That way I kind of know what side is what, even though it's pretty self-explanatory, as this one has just a bunch of little straight pieces wedged in here. Yeah, these aren't really any, nothing too special about the order or the size. I just kind of cut them to fit and wedged them in there. It, nothing's really glued down. It's all just held in place by the body, and that seems to be enough on it. Alright, so I got all my pieces from the left side. I'm going to put it over here on by the front tire on my trail finder so I know where that goes. And I'm probably going to have to start stripping all this stuff out of here. The speed controller is definitely coming out. I'm probably going to have to cut this wire off and solder it onto that new, onto the new Traxxas system, since I'm using Dean's connectors and not Traxxas connectors. So I'm probably going to have to do that, which I'm not really looking forward to, but, you got to do what you got to do. I probably won't be using the speed controller for a while unless I get another vehicle, so it can just sit off to the side until I'm ready for it the next time. There's a mess of spaghetti right there. Apparently my double-sided tape did not hold on that one. That peeled right off without a problem. This must have some dielectric grease or something on the bottom of it that's causing this not to stick too well. Have to make a little mental note about that too. Alright, well let's get down to the nitty-gritty, shall we? I'm going to hit the pause button. I'm probably going to pull this off in the meantime, the speed controller, this Axial AE5. We'll get that guy out of there. Then we need to start removing the transmission. I'm also replacing both of these ends on the drive shaft up here, the upper and lower links. Wobbly. And that is because it doesn't quite fit on that RC 4-wheel drive shaft. So, and I'm not even sure if I really even need this axle on the back anymore. I might go ahead and put that WLtoys axle back on the back of this thing. There's lots of questions in the air over here on this one. Like I said, I'm trying to get it to hydroplane and paddle itself back to shore, so I don't know how much use that boat prop's going to be. So, a couple more minutes here, I guess, and let me get this all torn apart, and we'll move on to the next step. But on a side note, since I had new axles for the RC 4-wheel drive, for my Trail Finder 2, now I have a complete set of axles, or a complete set of 6 axles that I can use for another project. So I can build a 6x6 in the future if I wanted to, since I have the correct axle right here for the forward rear axle, and then I could hook that back up to my stock rear Trail Finder axle, and then use my Trail Finder front axle, for a steering axle. So could have a 6x6 in the future. Alrighty, we are back. I pulled out the ESC, or the receiver, my winch controller, which is for my lights. I disconnected the steering servo and the ESC, and I put some blue tape around the wire ends so I knew which was which, ESC, STR, and this is just for my lights, which I don't have hooked up, so all this is going off to the side. ESC has been removed. Peeled the bulk of the double-sided tape off the bottom of it. And that is going to go off to the side for the moment until I figure out how much of this battery wire I need to cut off of here. I got her all opened up, peeled off the bulk of the double-sided tape, which was on right down here around this winch plate that I adapted to the top of the transmission to mount my receiver, or to mount my ESC. Sorry about that. So I have my ESC setting up here so it was nice and dry. I use one of these on my twin hammers so I could put a larger shift servo on it. But nevertheless, this needs to be removed. I'm going to take out the transmission and get to pulling this motor. So that is our next step, is taking this off and pulling the transmission out. Alright, we are back. In order to make life a little bit easier, I went ahead and pulled out the two front screws for this bumper, pulled the chassis off of it, or pulled the body off the chassis, I guess I should say. Removed the spur gear cover. I tried removing the drive shaft set screw in here, and it just does not want to come out. So I disconnected the drive shaft from the back of the axle here. Since I'm going to be replacing these couplers anyways with some Vatera couplers, it's not going to be the end of the world. And I did remove the tires as well, just to make this once more a little bit easier to work on. A little piece of seaweed there. Make it a little bit easier to work on, I put my drive shaft tire screws or nuts or whatever back into the spacers, back into the spacers, just to keep them all in place so I don't lose them. And the next step is probably going to be removing the shock tower and unscrewing the transmission. So one pause for that. And another thing I noticed is that this baby is pretty chunky sounding. When I first spun it over, the motor was rusted up, so no surprise there, eh? Alright, so I'll be right back here in a second. I'm going to go ahead and remove the shock tower and get to taking the screws out at the bottom of the transmission. And we are back, and at 23 minutes, I'm probably going to end the video right here, guys, and start up another one. This portion has never been removed on this truck. I've never taken this off, and it is no surprise to me that this screw here and this screw over here are completely stripped out. I need to pull off this little piece right here in order to get access to this transmission. I was able to get out this screw down here for the steering arm, or the steering slide dealy deal. And this one over here, but this one's stripped out too. And it's never been touched. This is just factory WLtoys stuff. So I'm gonna have to drill out all of these screws and use a pair of pliers to pull the remaining screw out of the plastic. So I'm just gonna pause it right here, guys, and I'll start up another video here in a minute. But while I'm paused, I'm going to drill these guys out so you guys don't have to witness any of that carnage. And we'll be right back. So thanks for watching, everyone. Be back in here in a second. One moment, please. And thanks for watching, everybody. Very much appreciated. We'll see you here in a minute.